Welcome back to 840 AD and the world of Shatranj, an ancient chess variant. We're going to be looking at an endgame puzzle today, but stick around once you've solved it, as there is a second, deeper, more intriguing mystery behind it. Now, this puzzle was mentioned in a book called The History of Chess, written by a chap named Murray from 1913, and he got it from ancient Arabic manuscripts written by Shatranj masters such as our old friend Al-Suli. Now, here is what appears to be the original manuscript, and according to Murray, Al-Suli wrote, "This happened to Abu Nam, and he used to boast of it." Okay, so let's get the position on the board. Okay, so there's Abu Nam playing as red, and he's facing Anonymous Guy's ancient Arabic cousin Al-Anon playing as blue. Now, another cool thing about this is that none of the Shatranj rule variations are in play here, which makes this the oldest known modern chess problem. So see if you can solve it. It's blue's turn to move and mate in 3. You have 10 seconds on the countdown clock, or you can even pause the video if you like. Let's begin. Okay, so your time's up. If you managed to get it, well done. I'm sure you did. If you didn't, shame on you. Just unsubscribe now. So the first move is knight to h5, which gives a check. Now the red king can't move anywhere. In fact, the only legal move for red is to capture the knight with the rook. And now blue is going to capture the red knight with his rook, which gives another check. And the only move again for red is to capture the rook with the king. And of course, the remaining blue rook is coming up to deliver the checkmate, smashing through the middle here. The pawn's guarding the bottom square and the king's guarding the top 3 squares. So checkmate, very nice. So let's reset the problem. Now, what is the second mystery? Here is another quote from Murray in 1913. "The claim that this position represents the termination of an actual game must be qualified. The position has clearly been edited to satisfy the artistic canons of Muslim chess, for red's attack is so strong that he must have had a mating attack the preceding move. The problem supplies a good example of this embellishment. It has been a favourite both in West and East." Okay, so was it the end of a real game or not? Murray doesn't elaborate much, so let's investigate. First, let's check Murray's claim about how this position was arrived at. If it were red's move now instead of blue's, he had rook to h8 with checkmate protected by the knight here. So did Abu Nam miss this checkmate on the previous move? I don't think so. Remember that this guy was a Shatranj master. So to arrive at this position, what was red's last move? If the rook on d7 was somewhere else waiting to be moved into place on the last move, then Abu Nam would also have the ability to checkmate with rook to h8 on the last move, which he would have taken instead. So rook to d7 could not have been the last move, so that's ruled out. What about the h7 rook, if that was somewhere else? Well, if this rook were anywhere along this row, you wouldn't be moving it to h7, would you? You'd be just giving a straight up checkmate with rook to d8. And similarly, if it was anywhere along this column, say h2, you're going to be checking with this rook, and after the blue rook blocks, you're going to capture it, and it's a checkmate that way as well. So quite clearly, the last move wasn't rook to h7. What about the knight? Well, it turns out that whichever square you try to start out the knight on in order to move it to g6, it's always faster just to deliver the checkmate straight away. For example, if he's down here, then you're going to go check, and if the king moves in the corner, you're checkmating with the rook, capturing the blue rook, and then it's checkmate. Or if the king goes this way, you can check here, the blue rook comes up, and instead of capturing it, now you bring the knight in, and it's a nice checkmate. So let's just reset. Nothing works in this sense. You can't start from here, it's already checked. That would be an illegal move from blue if this were the situation. So what else is there? Well, the pawn's not actually involved here, so it can't have been the pawn that was piece to move. So that leaves just the king. Now the king couldn't have come across from the left side like this with a check and then a check, because it would have given blue the opportunity to capture one of the rooks here and draw the game. So it couldn't have been from this side. So perhaps the king was on g5 and the pawn was pushed, giving a check, making the king move up to f6. Well, in that case, you'd have to assume that in this position, Abu Nam, one of the greatest Shatranj masters of all time, would have missed that capturing the pawn with the knight or the king would have resulted in a draw instead of the forced checkmate in 3, were he to move the king to f6, and that seems like a bit of a stretch. So this appears not to have been the exact conclusion to an actual game, so let's investigate more about what the actual position could have looked like. Now, to help us with this, let's take a trip through the ages to see some places where the puzzle has cropped up. First, we have a Spanish example from 1496, only 523 years ago, and this one is from our friend Greco in 1420-ish, 600 years ago. Of course, being Greco, he's gone and added a bunch of extra pieces to make it that bit more flash. Now, here's some Spanish examples, this time from 1283, 740 years ago. 4 versions of the same puzzle, but with slightly different configurations, and this last one appears to be a game of strip chess where the gentleman on the left is losing and the lady is saying, "Come on, you promised you'd take everything off." And this is going all the way back to the 840s with another Arabic manuscript. Now it's flipped up the other way, so let's just rotate it around and let's get the position on the board. So here it is, it's the same kind of position with some slight differences. We've even got an elephant down here, but it's not really doing anything. But again, in this configuration, there is no previous red move to be found, but we won't go into it here just to save a little bit of time. But you can see it's the same sort of situation. The knight's coming in here with check, and the only move for red is to capture it. The knight's getting captured here. Again, the only move is to capture with the king, and you're getting checkmated like this. So very nice, but it's not the answer to the question. Here is another manuscript from the same era with a slightly different configuration again. So let's look at this one. Here it is on the board, and the colours were actually flipped, but I've kept them the same on the board just for ease of understanding. It turns out in this case there is a previous red move, and that is the rook capturing the piece on g6, where the piece on g6 is either a furs or a pawn attacking the rook in the corner here. Now the key is that the rook can't deliver a checkmate here because the king's going to escape, and then after you check here, you're capturing the knight, you're capturing the furs, and blue is in trouble, but you don't end up in the same position as in the puzzle. So you're forced with this rook here to capture the furs or the pawn, and then you get into the position in the manuscript. So this is an actual conclusion to something which could have been a real game. So was it the end of the actual game that was boasted of by Abu Naam? You weren't there, man, you don't know! See you again next time.
You weren't even there, man!